Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Today we have Foundation Software and CrewTracks joining. We have Tom Greco, who is one of the regional sales reps here at Foundation. And we're going to be talking about getting together our construction accounting software with field management software. We have two best-of-breed applications to talk about here today. We've got Tom Greco, as I mentioned, one of our regional sales managers here with Foundation. And we're very pleased to have VP of Marketing with CrewTracks, Brett Fairborn, on the line as well. Got some exciting information to share with you guys today. And so let's not delay. We'll kick it off here. Brett, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. We talk about Foundation a lot with our customers. We love working with Foundation. CrewTracks and Foundation work together really, really well. So it's exciting to be here. So you can see a little bit of information about CrewTracks here. We really have three main bullet points that I hope you'll take away today. And those are in the little paragraph at the top. First, empower field crews, and then simple and powerful, and then fanatical customer service. So it's, the number one there. Intuitive interface makes daily reports a breeze. Everybody says their software is simple. So I'm really excited to show you our mobile app so you can judge for yourself. It's hard to make a really powerful app that doesn't look like a bunch of spreadsheets. And that's what we've done. And number two, we started in 2015 originally. It was a custom solution just for one contractor here local to us in Utah. And then we looked at each other and said, hold on, we've got something here. And we started selling it. We got into the App Store mid 2017. Number three, we eliminate manual data entry for job site data and payroll. So if you're on paper, we love talking to people who are using paper because implementing CrewTracks is a no-brainer. But we also, again, we try to make it really intuitive and simple. So we have people switching from other solutions just because they want something simpler, especially for the guys in the field. And then finally, number four, this is our guarantee. Every customer has a contact they know by name. So we do have a support phone line, but it doesn't ring that often because everyone just calls their guy. They're going to call Casey or Caleb. And this is another reason why we love working with Foundation, just because of the similar philosophy of that, having a human answer the phone and helping your customers when they need it. So that's CrewTracks.
Awesome. That's great. I'm going to try and flip over you to the presenter. There are two of you on the panel here, so I'm hoping I make the right one the presenter.
All right, let's see. Something changed. I cannot show my screen though.
All right, let's try this.
Here we go. All right, show my screen. Cool. Is my screen visible for everybody? Hopefully.
Looks like it.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay, so before I jump into our software, I want to get a couple important things out of the way so I don't forget or run out of time at the end. One is our.
Check 1 second here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot housekeeping. I just saw a question pop up here. It says, everything's good. Greg, thanks for confirming. You can see the screen. If you do have questions, you can use the question section. We are going to defer those to the Q&A after both presentations here, but we will do our best to get through all questions once we get to that point in time. Take it away, Greg.
Perfect, cool. And I've got about 15 minutes, is that right?
Yeah. Give or take, yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so just so I don't forget or run out of time at the end, I wanted to show a couple things. CrewTracks.com is our website, and there is a little video on this play button here it's still pretty brief, but it covers a few things that I won't be able to get to, but also I'll cover some things that aren't in that video. So just a resource for you to review afterwards. And of course, if you want a real in-depth look at CrewTracks, just use this button right here, schedule a demo, and then you just scroll down and the calendar loads and you can pick a date and time. I also wanted to point out on Foundation's website, if you go to resources and then partners, you can find this page, and it just gives a little rundown of how CrewTracks and Foundation work together, including a quick little video that talks about how data goes from CrewTracks to Foundation. So if you don't get anything else, you've got some resources to look at after this webinar. But for today, kind of a slight disclaimer, because I just don't have time to go into everything. So I'm going to focus on our mobile app. Whoops, there we go. And I'm going to show you on an iPad. We do work on any iOS or Android device. Well, Android, there's like 20,000 devices. So there are some we don't support, but we support like 18,000 or something. I'm going to focus on the mobile app because we pride ourselves on having such a simple and powerful mobile app that empowers your field crews. I'm guessing most of our attendees today are in the office, right? We've got office managers, project managers, maybe owners or executives, payroll, accounting, right? You guys know the value of data, but what we often hear is that it's difficult to get really robust, rich data from the field. So I want to show you CrewTracks from the point of view of a foreman and how simple we make it for them to get you all the data that you need. So what you're looking at right here is the first thing a foreman will see when they log into CrewTracks. And unless they don't have a schedule set up ahead of time, in which case they could tap here on create new schedule and use a template. But if you set it up for them, we can see, all right, here's a schedule description. And this could be, you know, meet at this time, here's the gate code, and this can be texted out to everyone in the crew with one click on the back end, the office side of CrewTracks. So just kind of a useful communication piece. The rest is just, you know, what jobs are on the schedule? Do you need directions to get there? And when they're ready to actually work on the job site, they tap work on schedule. And this is what they'll see throughout the day, just setting up, you know, getting their daily report done in CrewTracks. So again, I said a slight disclaimer, I can't get into everything here. So I'm gonna go almost painfully deep on one or two items because I want you to see the level of detail and thought we've put into making the foreman's life easy. And then again, just schedule a demo if you want to see kind of the rest. So first, let's just jump through each of these items on the bottom because I want you to know all of these features are optional. So if this looks like a lot and you don't want to have all this stuff, no problem. In fact, let me jump back to schedules. I'll show what it looks like if I create a schedule using a template that just uses our documents feature. So now you can see the buttons on the bottom. You know, you can go back to view the other schedules or you can fill out your documents for today. So, you know, whatever your guys need to see, we'll make that visible for them. If there's something they don't need, we're not going to make it look more cluttered and confusing by putting that in front of them. And in saying that, I want to clarify, we don't nickel and dime people either. You know, you get all of CrewTracks when you purchase CrewTracks. So use what's easy to implement at first and then roll out another feature one at a time if it's going to be useful to you. But let's go back to that schedule I was looking at and let's start diving in here. So at the beginning of the day, I can clock everyone in, right? I can just tap each name and they're clocked in. Or if you want to use our photo feature, which I have activated for this setup, then when you tap the name, it's going to open up the camera. There's me. We'll take a selfie and I am clocked in. If you've got a lineup of people that you want to clock in all at once, you know, some people feel like the picture is a bit time consuming. I would recommend using the picture anyway. It's a great liability coverage to see that everyone looks healthy and happy at the beginning and end of the shift. But we do have a way to speed that up if you hit multi-select and then check as many people as you want and hit mass clock in. If they're all lined up, it's going to open up the camera. Let's take a picture of Hugh Jackman. Looks a lot like me in the window, but trust me, he's out there. He's in the bushes. Take another picture. All right, so we got Hugh Jackman and Matt Damon clocked in. And again, you could select 10 guys and just go down the line taking pictures to get the nice photo, GPS, timestamp. It's really easy to keep everyone accurate and honest. It's the right person, right place, right time. So after that, optionally, you can edit the clock in time, which I'm going to do just to give us some time to play with. So I'll hit multi-select again, select all, and let's mass adjust time. And I'm going to move it pretty early in the morning to give us some time to play with. And save, and you can see it leaves a little audit trail. So, and you can turn off that ability too if you don't want people to be able to edit the times. But if you let them edit their times, it will show you that they edited it and what time the clock in actually occurred and what they changed it to. So let's go ahead and clock everybody out. Multi-select, select all. That was up here. Sorry, I'm trying to follow with my mouse while I'm using my other hand on the iPad. And let's mass clock everyone out. And again, it's going to open up the camera and you'll take the picture, but after each picture on the clock out, it's also going to ask, were you injured? So I'll say no, and then I'm going to sign this to say I worked 7 hours and 40 minutes. You might notice it automatically took out 30 minutes for lunch. That's another optional feature. You can set the time on that. Just trying to save time wherever we can, right? So let's accept that. Got the photo to clock the next guy out. Were you injured? Hey, Hugh, can you sign this please to say you weren't injured? Great. Matt, Let me take your picture. Matt, can you sign this, please? Cool, good to go, right? And I kind of jumped ahead just because I don't want to bounce around in the app, but obviously the foreman can go to all these other areas to fill out his daily report during the day and then come back here to clock everyone out. But let's walk through a few of these items down here. Again, I won't have time to go through all of them, but the jobs one is pretty cool. We've added some new features to this recently. And this is a great example of what I mean when I say we empower the field. So our app is not just for data to go from the foreman or from the field worker to the office. We also want to empower the foreman with data that he can look at and review himself. So first of all, we have the job status, right? We can see any context here. The customer is Foothill, tap on that, and it gives you whatever information you have for the contact for that job. If we go into the job items, like this brick item, for example, I can see before I even put in any information for today, before we started today, this is kind of static. The jobs tab says, hey, here's where you were before you started working today. On labor, we've used a little bit too much labor, or that same information is presented here a little bit different way. Based on our production, we've laid 3,215 brick, or this could be cubic yards, square feet, whatever production measurement works for you. So we can see that about 30% is done. We should be at 38% based on the labor we've used. So we've used a little too much labor, or if you think about it another way, we haven't laid quite enough brick. We're not keeping up on pace, but it's pretty close. So a foreman looking at this is going to know, okay, I'm pretty much on pace. We just need to keep a good pace today, and we should be on target. If there was any equipment, time, or materials usage allocated to this job, that would show here as well. But it's just kind of a hub for the foreman to see how the job is going so far. And also has shortcuts. If he has done some of the daily report for today, he can jump around to those different parts of the daily report from here. But we haven't done any of that yet, so there's nothing to show yet. So let's go to time assignment. And this is where we can allocate people's time to different tasks on the job. So again, we can multi-select, trying to save the foreman time wherever we can. Select all, and let's just say everyone worked 6 hours on State Bank on the brick item. So we'll hit mass allocate here. I can just tap right here to allocate everyone's time completely to that, or I can cut it back and say, no, everyone worked 6 hours. Now we still have some time left to allocate. Do we want to put it on elevator or stone? I'm going to tap done just so you can see what it looks like to allocate for one person. So let's say I spent, tap add time up here. I spent all that time on elevator. Great, now all my time is allocated. I'm actually going to go ahead and put everyone's time on elevator. So I could have multi-selected, or you can do it one at a time. When there's only a few people here, it doesn't make much difference. All right, so everyone's time is allocated. No one worked on stone today. You can actually remove it from the schedule, but if you just leave it there with no data, no harm done. Okay, so we've allocated time. Let's go to production. And this is one of those areas I'm going to dive in a little bit deep. And again, it's optional. You know, if you just want guys to clock in and out and take photos, great, you can do that. But if you want to get a little more granular and really tighten up your bids and have some just awesome data flowing in from the field to help you run your business more intelligently with all the data you can have here, then production tracking is really useful. So after putting in today's labor, which was 18 hours, 3 guys for 6 hours each, we're now 388 brick behind. So let's say we nailed it. Let's go ahead and put in 450 brick. Awesome. We're now a little bit ahead of pace. We can see we were expecting to do about 21 brick per hour. We actually got 25. So we just kicked butt today. This is great. Elevator, again, we should have laid about 70 or 47 CMU today. Let's say we just barely exceeded that. Cool, we're looking good. Stone, we didn't get any time on this. I just want to show you again, this is a little bit of a deep dive into this feature. Let's say I accidentally tap stone. I meant to tap brick. And so I go here and I put in 450, thinking I'm saying 450 brick. You know, hopefully as a foreman, I'm paying close enough attention. I'm going to see, wait a second, target is 0, current is 25%. Something is wrong here. Oh, that's right. This is stone. I meant to put that in brick. So it's really easy to just say no production today. And then it just zeroes it all out for you. But then if that was a mistake, you can say actually yes, and it saves the data you input before. So we just, down to a really granular detail, we've tried to save any taps or typing or swipes that the foreman has done. We don't want him to waste any time, so we're going to save it in case it becomes useful. In this case, we really didn't want any production on stone, so let's just put no and zero it out again. All right, and then continuing on, I only have a few minutes left, so I think I'll just kind of point to these and give you a little overview, and then maybe dive into documents. Then I got to show you the report. So equipment is a really similar interface to allocating people's time, right? You have equipment and then items, just allocate time to it. Materials, also similar. You've got materials and each item on the job, so you can allocate materials to each job item. So again, this is just simple and powerful, right? It's the same interface over and over. It becomes very familiar. It's easy to fill out, but you get information about time, production, equipment, materials just by using the same interface. Notes and photos, pretty self-explanatory. You can take photos or import photos if they've been taken earlier. And then let's just take a second on documents. They will be organized into folders automatically, but you can create your own folders to organize it how you want. And then I just like to show some of the things a PDF can do, because a lot of people don't realize if you put like a drop down, we can make those really easy to read in CrewTracks, right? So what used to be this little box that someone's got to try to write in, now it becomes this really easily readable drop down. You can tap one of those items. And then this particular JHA has a scoring sort of rubric as well. So if we put some of these scores in here for assessing this hazard, it does the math for you there as well. So, some pretty fancy stuff you can do with the PDF that a lot of people don't think about. When we released this document management feature, it kind of tripled the efficacy of CrewTracks, because anything that doesn't exist down here, just put it here in a document, whether it's a certain document for a GC or a municipality. If there's a certain document you have to use for whatever reason, just put it in here, and you still don't have to send that paperwork to the field, don't have to chase it down. It's all done digitally and instantly. And by the way, this little green dot up here tells me that everything I've done has already been sent to the office. It turns orange when something's pending. It gets an X when you're offline. But CrewTracks just works flawlessly. The guy using the mobile app won't really notice that it's offline unless he happens, there it just synced again, unless he happens to look at that dot. And then whenever you get a connection again, it will just sync everything across. So miscellaneous information is a custom page we build for each customer. This example is parking receipts. We didn't have parking receipts built into CrewTracks, but if there's some little random piece of info that you want to include in your daily report, you can do that. And this little tiny asterisk here tells me that this is required. So if I don't check this, in fact, if I could try to submit now, it'll say, no, you have to have notes and photos, and you didn't say that you included a photo of your parking receipt. So you're not going to get any incomplete daily reports out of CrewTracks, because it's going to notify the foreman, hey, you forgot a thing or two, before it lets them submit. So I'm running low on time. I'm going to shift to the office view just to show you some of the reports that are available to you in CrewTracks. Here's an example of a job efficiency report. This is one of our real customers. So we can see that he budgeted 289 hours for the curb and gutter item on this job, and he went over quite a bit actually, but it shows he used 132% of the labor budget. Equipment time was about spot on. Units are a little short. Maybe they, I don't know if they're not quite done yet, or if this is just what ended up being reported. But you can just kind of get a quick glance at how each job item is going. And then I just want to show that on our exports, job time, for example, one of our exports is a foundation export. And same with our equipment, materials, production. There's a bunch of data that goes really smoothly into foundation. And if it's not set up exactly the way you like, we also have this custom exports area where we can set up something like a foundation export, just so it's set exactly the way you want it, so it goes right into foundation with no issue. I do have a little example of what the file might look like. I'm guessing we have some Excel lovers and some Excel haters in our audience today, or maybe some who just tolerate Excel and follow instructions on the certain thing but don't change it on me, or I'll be lost, right? There's all kinds of different relationships we have with Excel. I prettied this one up a little bit with the green and the white to make it a little easier to read. The actual file that comes out is just black and white CSV. You just dump it right into one of Foundation's wizards, and it's done, piece of cake. But you can see you got date, employee number, employee name, job number, cost code, hours. When we go over here to the end, like, actually, this may not be it. Let's see, equipment. Okay, so equipment, for example, constant and owned, maybe the guys at Foundation can help me out if that's something specific to Foundation, but these are two examples of fields that I have no idea what it's for, because this is a custom field just for this customer that they needed, whether it's because it has to go into Foundation or it's just something that they need for their specific company. You have a bunch of flexibility for custom fields in CrewTracks so that we can spit out the data exactly the way you need to see it, whether it's like a workers' comp code or a department or a municipality pay rate or whatever. You can add any bits of data, and that kind of gets translated on the back end. It doesn't change the interface for the foreman, unless we have to do it that way, but usually by selecting a job item, it gets all that custom information with it. And then that data, again, I'll just point out, we have a quick little preview video on Foundation's website that shows how those import genies work, but perhaps Tom will go into that. I'm not sure exactly what Tom's going to show us with Foundation, but my time is up. So there you go. Whew, drinking from a fire hose. All right, so I need to pass this over to you, Tom. Let's see. Oh, now I have two that I can't tell who is who.
I'm good.
Oh, you took it from me. Perfect.
Yep. Yes, sir. So hopefully everybody can see my screen, and thank you, Brett. You touched on some things that I definitely want to incorporate with today's presentation and talk about, the important part of bridging the gap between the field and the office, and then kind of take it a step further and talk about, once we have that information, what can we do with it? What can we use in Foundation, and highlight some major differences of Foundation versus other maybe off-the-shelf systems, and what we can track versus what people are missing out on if they're not using something that's very construction specific. And before we jump into the system, I kind of just like to talk a little bit about our company and who we are. Foundation Software, we are a construction accounting and project management software that works primarily and solely with contractors all over the United States. We're very excited to talk about how long we've been in business. So, we've had, the luxury and the ability to be in business since 1985. So we've come a long way, and we've seen a lot of companies come and go, and we're very happy and excited to be one of those companies that has that long lineage in our industry. And one of the reasons I think that kind of propelled us into, being one of those companies that still is successful is we don't deal with third parties or dealerships. When you talk to Foundation Software, when you look at our product, when you go through your implementation, when you receive customer support, it is something that we do solely in-house. So it's not something that we would sell you the software and then a third party would implement you, or a third party supports you. It's all us. And the nice thing that we put a lot of effort and a lot of time into is definitely our direct phone support. One of the upsides of using something construction specific of Foundation is definitely going to be that support, because if you have questions about prevailing wages, retainage, being able to create custom reports, job costing issues, posting issues, we know what you're talking about. It's not something that if you have an issue with the fringe and payroll that we're out there saying, well, what are fringes? What's certified payroll? No, this is stuff that we've done from 1985 to today. So we're very happy to offer direct phone support and direct training. So let's talk a little bit about who uses Foundation. So we work with companies that are small to mid-sized contractors, and the only industry, like I said, we're in is construction. So everything we do is extremely construction specific and tailored just to the construction industry. Currently, we have around 6,000 plus active clients all over the United States, and we work with a lot of contractors that have outgrown their off-the-shelf product. So if you're using something like a QuickBooks or a Peachtree that hasn't been really tailored to construction, and with those types of products there's a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of bottlenecks in everyone's processes, where when I hope to go through the system, I'll highlight some of those areas that kind of make us stick out, that would definitely save you some time, headaches, room for error when dealing with the contractor, the things that we see pretty much every day. And also, we still deal with companies that need an upgrade in current technology. So if you're on a system that's no longer being supported or is about to end its life in support, or I still come across those that still are on old DOS systems or old custom systems, it's a nice alternative to once again find somebody who does everything in house as well as is strictly in construction, so that your needs are met every step of the way. So that's a brief little introduction of who we are and what we do for those that don't know who we are. And I also like to jump into right now and showing you how we can definitely bridge that gap, especially with CrewTracks and Foundation. So Brett touched on a lot of things that we find are great clients for Foundation. And I just want to take you to what the main menu would look like for the most part, depending on, what modules you select for our accounting system. Everything that you see on the screen, we're not the type of company that's a buy everything or else. So we're very tailored, not only on the sales side of providing you with the modules that you need, but we also do tailored implementations and obviously tailored support. And Brett hit on some major things that I see very common with companies that use off-the-shelf systems. There's an inability for us to collect payroll in a timely fashion. There should be no reason why your payroll takes you 3 days. And that could be for a myriad of reasons. Collecting time from paper time cards, doing certified payroll manually, calculating multiple pay rates manually, multiple states manually. We want to circumvent all that. And that's really what our product will do. Some other definite things that Brett talked about that a lot of off-the-shelf systems failure to capture is going to be production and then also equipment. So, if I'm using something like QuickBooks, it's always that song and dance of, well, I'm doing my accounting in QuickBooks and I'm doing my reports in Excel, or I'm doing my accounting in QuickBooks and I have 3 other spreadsheets to update equipment, burden, quantities, production. We can do all that in the system. So everything that Brett has captured from the field translates to something that we can use in the system. Payroll especially. So being able to import that payroll from CrewTracks is definitely something that's going to save you a ton of time compared to doing paper time cards or manual time card entry. So with every export that we would create from CrewTracks, we would build a specific import for that time card. It's nice because we can work together. So when you have a partnership between, CrewTracks and Foundation, it's not, we'll call CrewTracks, we'll call Foundation. I can guarantee you that there's been calls where we've both been on training sessions or both been on support calls where we can talk about how we can best provide you with an import so that you don't have to do that stuff manually. You can export it right from CrewTracks. All you're really doing is going into Foundation. You're going to click that import button, go grab that file from CrewTracks, and it just drops right in. So it saves you a ton of time bridging that gap. It's not something that we want to have disjointed. We want that to be something that we can easily pull in here. And that would hold true with equipment and production as well. So there's always an ability to import those items in the system so that I'm not manually logging that stuff. And with the system itself, as we process payroll, as we process equipment, as we process quantities, all that information now lives in accounting. So it makes the job costing side of Foundation extremely real time. And with the system itself, there's going to be other benefits of using something construction specific for those that track equipment and track labor, and everybody's favorite, time and material billing. So being able to have those equipment hours in my accounting system and those labor hours in my accounting system as well, where I can then turn around and easily mark up a bill based on those labor hours and equipment hours. So it's all things that I like to highlight that CrewTracks does extremely well that we can also bring in the Foundation, then Foundation does extremely well. Now on the job cost side, all that information that we're collecting from the field, it definitely updates accounting. So I don't want you to think that we can't do balance sheets and over/under billing and certified payroll. That's all common things that come right out of the box with Foundation. But where we really shine is the job costing side. So what can we do with that information that we did collect from the field? How can we start to look at things not so much as the job ended, but as the job progresses? And one of the big features of Foundation is definitely going to be this executive dashboard. This is a tool that we provide every single company that goes with Foundation that allows them to have really quick, easy, detailed job costing. So when I want people now to see what their jobs are really costing as the job progresses, whether it's every day, every other day, every week, there is zero need for you to do anything in spreadsheets. I should be able to come in and at a high level, drill into all my jobs and have a clear picture of where every job is at. Another thing that I like to talk about that kind of misses the boat with off-the-shelf systems are change orders. So when we look at numbers in Foundation, we're looking at them including change orders. This isn't something that you have to track on a napkin or in Microsoft Word. We want to provide you with the process inside of the accounting system where then we can enter those change orders and actually see those numbers as opposed to tracking them in 3 different areas. And then always being able to see what's really going on with each job. You know, at a bare minimum, I should know whether this job's making money or losing money based on our billings and cost. So it's something that at a high level, we can definitely review. And then if we have any questions in relation to any single one of these jobs, it's just as simple as clicking on that job. And from a reporting perspective, now we can start to pull in some of that stuff from CrewTracks, especially on the cost side. So I don't want you to think it's just limited to that. You know, if I wanted to see every AIA invoice that went out the door, if I want to see every dollar cost, every change order, you know, if we have anybody on today's webinar that does subcontracts, always a bear to track committed costs in an off-the-shelf system. There's not really a true purchase order or subcontract system in there. We're once again, just like change orders, we want to provide you with the process and have that in your accounting system so that we can look at jobs as a whole. Now, with the job costing side, you know, it's important for us to be able to see cost to date. But, you know, as Brett was entering in some of that time, he was breaking it down to cost codes. He was doing the same with equipment. And what does that mean to us if we want to look at job costing? Well, it gives us a lot of ability to now drill into a job at any time. And if we're using some type of estimating software, or we like to just enter budgets in manually, A, we can import from estimating packages, and B, you can always set up the budget manually. So it is something that, you know, we don't want to just stop at the job. If we have anybody on today's webinar that really likes to look at job cost in detail, meaning specific line items, estimated cost, actual cost, estimated quantities. So as you know, Brett was allocating time, he was also allocating production. So now we can pull those numbers in and we can actually see, okay, what did we budget for this? What have we completed so far? And what do we still have out there? And we can do the same with cost too. So being able to see the estimated dollars versus the actual dollars. And then we can always take things a step further where we're able to drill into those specific cost codes and see that next layer underneath it. So as time is being coded, you know, it's automatically captured in payroll. It's automatically captured in labor. There's nothing you have to do to update these reports. All you have to do is just do payroll. And all those numbers will be updated, as well as equipment, payroll burden, material allocation. So a lot of those things that he was capturing on his device, they all translate to Foundation, not only from the accounting side, but also from the job cost side. And we're always able to get that furthest level of detail back out of the software. So if we have questions still on any single one of these outputs, we're always able to drill into that output and see all the detail that lives behind it. So these would be all the time cards that came over from CrewTracks in detail, stating who the employee was it overtime, and everything is coded correctly to the job all the way down to the cost code. Now with the equipment side, I tend to find that to be something that's always missing in an off-the-shelf system where, you know, it's always tracked on a spreadsheet. It's always kind of captured more so as like an overhead allocation, but not true equipment hours. So as Brett was coding his time, he was also coding that equipment, which definitely is important if we're looking at jobs as a whole. And if we have budgets for equipment, well, how do we get that actual? And that's just by coding the equipment. So one of the nice features of Foundation is we have an equipment module where you can set up different pieces of equipment that would mirror those pieces of equipment in CrewTracks. And as that time is being coded as well, it all flows back to job costing. I can look at those equipment hours, and just like labor, I can drill into that equipment and see every piece of equipment that was used on that job for that task and how long it was used and how much it costs. So it's big to bridge that gap between what we're really truly do as a business, what we really truly want to track, and then how can we get that information efficiently and then easily. So it's big for us to be able to capture that. And then same thing on the production side. You know, we want to be able to not only just capture the budget versus actual, but what are some other things that we can do with those quantity-driven entries? You know, Foundation is a great fit for those to look that to track production. And when we talk about estimated cost versus actual cost, and not only just that, but man hours and job costing, it's all pulled into one area. Where here's an example of a production report that I have created, where it gives us that cost code level breakdown for a specific project. That's where we start to pull in budgeted hours again, budgeted quantities, and then we can do some reporting on whether or not we fall in line with that production rate that we thought we were going to complete. Are we above it? Are we under it? Are we over it? And that gives us more of a real-time look of, how our jobs are currently performing, so that if there are overruns or overproduction, we can nip that in the butt before it gets too bad and gets out of hand. With these reports that come with the software, there's also going to be a report designer. So another thing that we can do with those quantities and those costs is we can produce or create unit cost-driven reports, where then we can take, labor costs divided by quantities, and you can get a cost per quantity. Same thing with materials. Any type of cost that we're looking to track to a job can be pulled into a job cost report, and we can also create those custom reports to tailor what you want as far as the layout, the columns, and then all that information just lives in Foundation. Now, after the time is processed, it's something that we want to be able to do really well with both union companies as well as certified payroll. So when time gets captured at CrewTracks, it's coded to a job. And in Foundation, once that time goes out the door, I should have no issue producing any type of certified payroll out of here. And that could be whether it's the electronic certified payroll, California DIR, LCP tracker, LCM, Ashtaware. As you can see, we pretty much have every single certified payroll upload that you could think of. So it's something that, for those that are kind of moving more towards those electronic certifieds, it really minimizes you having to do these manually and inside of that LCP tracker portal. It would create the formatted file for LCP or for one of these entities, where then you could just upload it directly to there. And then we still have all the tried and true paper copies. So, time collection from the field is great. It does code it to the job. It does capture all the costs, but we want to make that process after the fact just as easy as capturing the cost initially, where we want those certified payrolls to come right out of the system. We don't want to have to do those in Excel. We don't want to have to do those manually. And we really want to minimize that room for error so that it's something that comes from our accounting system and not from somebody misplugging something. So I wanted to touch on those highlights. Being able to have everything all under one roof is extremely important. We want to eliminate all those inefficiencies in everybody's processes when it comes down to billings, when it comes down to cost allocation, financials, over/under billing, all things that are extremely done very well out of the system, because it is so construction specific that we already have these styles of reports built into here, so it eliminates you having to do them manually. Now, I just like to talk about the highlights today. I always like talking about our partnerships that we have with third parties and how easy it is to get that data. We've been working with CrewTracks for a very, very, very long time, and CrewTracks clients are very good for Foundation, and Foundation clients are very good for CrewTracks. So it's one of those relationships that we have similarities in our ability to track those things that everybody likes to track, and then we can make them fit and be all under one accounting system. And with that, I'll go ahead and pull up the last slide here.
Awesome.
Now, go ahead.
Yep, no, just keep your screen up there. It's Q&A time. I don't know if you were going to do this, but Q&A is open. As I mentioned earlier, there's a question section here on your webinar console. Please feel free to type your question into there, and we'll kind of go through those as they come in.
Can I share a quick story about a Foundation and CrewTracks customer while the questions are rolling in?
Certainly.
Absolutely.
Awesome, because some of the stuff that Tom was talking about, it just kept bringing to mind Brazos Masonry, and they have given me permission to use their name, so it's all good. But they use CrewTracks and Foundation, and like Tom said, Foundation customers are a good fit for CrewTracks. CrewTracks customers or users are good fit for Foundation. And what Brazos does is they use the live field data from CrewTracks to populate a variance report, which takes pay rates into consideration. But just an example of where we had to fix something, they were looking at Foundation versus CrewTracks, and they're saying, hey, CrewTracks seems to be off here. And we realized there was an error in the way we were calculating their specific overtime. Of course, that error did not exist in Foundation. That's like their single source of truth, bottom line. Let's see what Foundation says, right? But it was so great to have them working with Foundation so that we could compare and say, oh, okay, I see what we did here. Let's fix that. And then they were able to then trust their variance report that they get from CrewTracks to empower their foreman to know, are we making or losing money today? But still lean on Foundation for the bottom line of like, okay, we can take this to the bank, all the data is in place. Foundation is kind of the final source of truth.
Yeah, and it's a good testament of both companies. It's sad that I come across a lot of other software providers that I like to say they don't like to play well with others, right? And if we can make the whole goal of any either enhancement of your software, enhancement of your business is to make sure everything talks to each other. So it's those relationships that we have with CrewTracks that make implementations, make support extremely easy, just because everybody's so easy to work with. That success story is a perfect example of both companies and their ability to play well with each other, which is very rare nowadays.
Yeah.
And it's always good to be proven right, just for the record.
Yeah, it's not bad.
So we do have a question here. Lynn Mathis, is there a Spanish component to CrewTracks?
Great question. Yeah, so you might have seen on the injury question, it says, were you injured? And it also says, te lastimaste. To be perfectly honest, that is the extent of the Spanish you'll see in CrewTracks currently. I am right now, it just so happens yesterday, I started applying for the Utah STEP grant, which specifically will give CrewTracks money to fund our efforts to make CrewTracks exportable throughout the world. We already have international customers, but with that grant, we plan to get to work immediately because it's money that has to be used to translate our app, which is great for me as the marketing guy because I'm like, hey, why don't we market to the whole world instead of just the US and Canada? So coming very soon, we'll be translating into other languages. Right now, it's mostly in English. Just so you know, usually the foreman has CrewTracks in their hands, and then they'll just kind of turn the phone or the tablet to someone to sign where it says there, were you injured? Te lastimaste. So we thought it was important to at least translate that part, but a full translation to the app is still coming down the road a bit.
And she said, thank you.
Cool. You're welcome. De nada.
I won't even attempt it.
I used to be the only Spanish speaking account manager in the early days, the real scrappy startup days of CrewTracks.
Nice.
But now I've got some other guys that speak Spanish, so I don't have to limp along with the bit that I know.
Right. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions. There's got 16 or so attendees left on here. I will say, having watched both of these presentations and having come from many years spent in the field doing consulting work, that disconnect between the field operations and the office and papers and napkins and crinkled up coffee stained items coming in to report quantities and time and all of this stuff. The technology that is available to us today to eliminate that and the confusion and the miskeying of data on top of the just the time savings and the accuracy is incredible. And I remember writing a production report that not only said, here's what was estimated and here's what's actual, but one of these things that Tom didn't show in Foundation is in that custom report writer can also calculate a makeup rate. If you're falling behind and you have 75% of your quantities left to go, you can say, hey, I know you estimated 10 an hour, but based off your current production rate, you got to do 12 an hour for the rest of the job in order to hit this budget. Not to mention production costs and so on. Maybe you're doing less production than you expected, but it's also costing you less. So even though it may take a little bit more time, based off of the current data, you're still going to be on budget. There's all kinds of data that's available to you, once you have that information brought into the system.
That's awesome. Yeah, CrewTracks will automatically calculate the makeup rate as well. And I was sharing that one time at a association convention, and this guy just started laughing. I had to pin him down afterwards, like, what was so funny? And he said, well, in some circumstances, you're not allowed to track that kind of stuff. And the comparison he drew was like, hey, we've got a pandemic. Let's just bring vaccines to the job site and give everyone shots. Like, well, that sounds nice. But if you do have any limitations in terms of what you're allowed to hold people to, sometimes with unions or whatever the case may be, you can't say, hey, you have to get 50 block per hour. That's fine. And, you can turn off those features in CrewTracks. And of course, in Foundation, it's mostly visible in the office, right? So you'll know, you'll know what you need to know. But if you don't want that displayed to the guys in the field, you can just shut it off in CrewTracks and only give them, again, what they need to see or what you're allowed to show them you're tracking.
Great. Brett, we've got an attendee that has too many questions to ask, so they're going to start looking at some of our videos and probably end up reaching out to you guys.
Cool. Hey, thank you so much.
Also,
this was
too,
awesome.
With today's presentation, I'm sure Brett will agree. We just touched on some brief highlights, and especially on the Foundation side, if I typically spend anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half with like a true demonstration of digging into all the AP entry, some of the reports too that Brian had mentioned, and dive in a little bit deeper. So if there is anybody on today's webinar that would like to see a demonstration, a more detailed, tailored demonstration for your company, all of our contact information is currently on the screen right now. So, obviously feel free to reach out to either Brent or me, depending on if it's something related to CrewTracks or something related to Foundation. And if you have questions, I'm sure both of us will be willing to help out with anything that you guys need.
Yeah, and Tom, I'm sure you'll agree. It's strange to make a presentation without asking questions about the company, right?
Oh yeah, that's why. So, like I mentioned, Brian had to dust off his radio voice today, and it's always you sound completely different on a webinar than you do on a personal demonstration. Definitely.
Right. Absolutely. Radio voice, because that's certainly not my television look.
I'm with you, bud.
I know I've seen you, Tom.
my wife tells me I'm really, really handsome, so I'm good, guys.
That's good. That's good.
The only one that matters.
That's
All right. Well, guys, I mean, it's just after 1:45 Eastern time. We're down to 11 attendees. People are dropping off. So let's cut everyone short, unless there's more questions. Brett, Tom, I appreciate both of you taking the time to present on today's webinar. Hopefully you guys all found it interesting and informative. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to either of these two with any questions you have. And we wish you guys best of luck.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brett. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for everybody who attended, too.
Take care.